What's going on, everybody? Yes, Adam, you are still there. Wednesday, December 5th, and I am back. 2 days off of strategy shows. Making me sad. I don't know what else to do in the mornings. I woke up and it was just like, I just need to pack my bags. I didn't have anything. But now, I have returned to grind out this lovely, damn it, I have no idea how many games. 2, 4, 6, 8, the lovely 10-game slate. Adam, what is going on?
How's it going, man? Excited to be back. Took the night off last night. Didn't play Sunday. 2 days off in 3 days feels like a huge vacation. So excited to be back.
Me too. I miss it. Which I'm gonna be honest with you, makes me a little scared. I'm starting to realize more and more that it's might have a problem. It's a positive problem because I think I just like my job that much. But at the same time, I went to dinner, my wife and her boss and a couple other people, and it was, I don't know, like 6 and change, and we're sitting at the table, and all I could think of was like, fuck, all I want to do is put in a lineup. I've got like 45 minutes. I literally thought about it sitting there. I was like, oh, should I have just put one in, something to check for the rest of the night?
Yeah, because then you also get the benefit of, if it happens to like hit huge, then you just made a bunch of money while you're out at dinner.
Exactly. I decided to just enjoy dinner because it was a dope dinner. And then I got to watch Nikola Jokic go crazy on a day where I didn't have any of him, and I've been touting him since the beginning of November. So, sometimes it's not all roses or something. I don't know. I'm just making shit up as I go along because I didn't export the chat and I can't see what anybody's saying. So I'm working on that, trying to ramble. Let me get there. We are brought to you by Thrive Fantasy today, which I'm excited to talk about. I really like picking these props. I'm kind of addicted to it now.
Yeah, I enjoy it. And I like I talked about it a little bit with Lofty yesterday too. Like, I like the way they have it set up also where, you choose which ones to play and you don't have to play them all. So, there's less ties and everything, but there's also more strategy that goes into it in that regard. I think it's a really, really fun setup.
Me too for sure. I don't know. I need to think about the logistics of balancing getting additional points with the risk involved and how often, maybe just guaranteeing yourself 85 instead of, a coin flip at 100 is better. It's something I need to dig into. I'm interested though.
Yeah. I think part of that has to come down to going back and looking at previous contests you've played and seeing how bad everyone else is.
That's a good point. Alrighty. So we're going to take a look at a couple Thrive props at the end. I'll bust them up on the screen. I've got all my projections loaded, so we'll get to see exactly where I stand, but that'll be how we close this 10-gamer out. Now, let me pop this open. I have one more thing to go over, and then we can just dive into a lovely 10-gamer. Not a lot of good stuff going on in the 7 o'clock game, so we'll get into it. Alrighty. Let's just do it. Let's dive in. Close. Ooh, this first game is quite the doozy, especially now that Steph is back. You ready for Cavs Warriors? It doesn't have the same sort of oomph that it used to have.
Yeah, not quite as exciting. Not on national TV anymore either. Saw an article about that. I need to go. Did you read the article in The Athletic about it?
I did not.
I need to actually go read it, but I bookmarked it to go back. But apparently they have a bunch of good quotes from Golden State players about killing the rivalry here.
It's gone. It's just the Warriors are 11-point favorites in Cleveland tonight. I'm honestly surprised that it's not more. What's this line if Draymond plays? 16?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know, 13.
Yeah, the Cavs have no bodies right now. Some of the bodies that they have are playing in some of the most putrid basketball. It's insanity. So let's talk about these Cavs. 105.5 implied total for Cleveland. 116.5 for the Warriors. Warriors are, I don't know, there's a bunch of teams in the 115 to 118 range tonight. Cavs are second lowest, third lowest behind Brooklyn and Orlando. It's not good. So we'll talk about the Cleveland side first. there's some value to be had just because they don't have a choice. Their rotation is so short that they have to play a pretty sizable amount of minutes. And on FanDuel, some of the prices are fine. Let's get the first guy out of the way. What in the world do we do with Larry Nance?
Don't play him.
It's fascinating. 5 days ago, it was like, oh, he's going to play 35 minutes. Like, there's no downside to Larry Nance. And now it's like he might get 22 and he's terrible.
Yeah, I mean, it's been when he doesn't start, he basically just becomes the backup center and gets, a few minutes at the 4. When he was starting at the 4, obviously completely different. But now that George Hill's back in the lineup, they've slid Chetty down to the 4, and it's basically forced Larry Nance to essentially be the backup to a guy who plays 36 to 38 minutes a night.
Yeah, I feel bad for him. I mean, I guess he's making that paper now, so I don't feel too bad for him, but I don't want to be Larry Nance right now in Cleveland, just rotting away as the backup center. I didn't see that coming.
Watching like Rodney Hood and Jordan Clarkson and Chetty.
Yeah, Chetty I get, but even Hood to an extent, although I'd be very surprised if Rodney Hood is a Cav next year. There's no need to be playing Jordan Clarkson. I mean, you should be trading George Hill immediately to anyone for anything. All right, let's talk about Tristan. You mentioned him playing monster minutes, 7,700 on FanDuel, 7,300 on DraftKings. He's not really a guy that I'm looking at here. There's just too many good centers, and in this particular spot, so many things have to go right for him to have like a ceiling game.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still interested just because he's just been so damn good. Like, the usage has gone up a little bit. The rebounding is, absolutely insane. And he's just been giving us, monster game after monster game. But there is one negative to take away from that game against Brooklyn, even though he played really well again, posted a monster double-double. It's that we did see his minutes in a competitive game drop down to 34, which you have to think is where they would like to have him. Like, I don't think that they want to go the entire, rest of the season playing Tristan Thompson 38 to 40 minutes. And George Hill coming back and playing 35 minutes in that game allowed them to just it deepened their rotation enough to where you could get Nance more minutes at the 5. You didn't have to play him, a bunch at the 4 as well. And you could take some of those minutes away from Thompson. So I think that with his price tag rising, even though he is really, really productive, I think that it's worth noting that there's a pretty good chance that he goes back into like that 34, maybe 36 minute range as opposed to 38 to 40.
Yeah, I have him in for 34 right now. Does Nance get blowout run?
I would think so.
Yeah. Like, Tristan Thompson's price now is up $1,000 from 2 days ago on FanDuel. He's 7,700. He was 6,700 before. When he was getting these monster minutes, he was at 5,700 at one point. The value, I think, has been squeezed out of his price tag on FanDuel.
Yeah, I mean, he was egregiously underpriced.
Yeah.
And now I think it's more fair to where he can still outperform it, but it's not like a mortal lock that it happens. And I just do think that the rotation getting a little bit deeper as the price rises is enough to make me a little hesitant.
Yeah, like if he goes for 50 tonight, that's a bummer and all if you don't have him, but it's probably not even the thing that kills you because there's just this wealth of centers that exist.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And that's the other thing. That's the other thing. Like, it's not like there's a lack of upside ever at this position.
Yeah. It was different when he was, 6,200 and could provide like a 10x multiple when he went crazy on FanDuel as the only center. But now he doesn't have the offensive game to really be able to get there at a giant price tag.
Yeah, and on FanDuel, like, you don't get the double-double bonus, which, it's only 1.5 points, but it's 1.5 points that you're almost guaranteed on DraftKings.
Yeah. So we need to talk Collin Sexton because I'm getting a lot of him. He's 4,800 on FanDuel. It makes me scared because George Hill played monster minutes in the last game. I don't know why I'm getting as much Collin Sexton as I am, outside of the fact that I believe his price dropped pretty dramatically. Do you have any interest in Sexton here?
I have some. I mean, I'm not too concerned about George Hill because Hill played his minutes alongside Sexton. We saw Clarkson, for the most part, Clarkson and Hill both played, but when Sexton wasn't on the floor. But plenty of minutes alongside each other for Sexton and Hill. So I'm not overly concerned there. I still think that you get, somewhere between 32 and 36 minutes from Sexton. I think I would project him around 34 for tournament purposes. The usage has been there. It's just a matter of, if he produces. But I think that the price tag dropping, like he's down to 4,900 on DraftKings. I think that's too cheap of a price tag, especially, Curry coming back. It increases the chances that this game blows out, but it also increases the pace at which Golden State plays, which takes this from what would have been an incredibly slow-paced game to a nice pace-off spot for Cleveland.
Yeah, his price was $6,200 on December 1st. He's $4,800 on FanDuel now. I'm having a hard time getting away from him, especially because I would expect him to be out there at the end of this game regardless. If it's close, probably. If it's not, is he not playing point guard?
They can put in Harrison.
That's true. I don't know. I'm going to end up having some Sexton. I just hope that his ownership, like his expected ownership, is low enough that I can bring mine down and not feel bad about it.
Right.
Because if he's at like 17% when I load up our ownership, then I'm going to be pretty bummed. I don't want to be with the field. I just want to be miles over it. But he's going to be high in our ownership just because of that price. Anything else from Cleveland that's standing out to you?
Not really. I think the slate's big enough. Obviously Rodney Hood at 4,400, Chetty at 45, even Hill, actually George Hill at 37 on DraftKings. He played 35 minutes last game. After the game, the Cavs coach essentially said that he made a mistake. He had said before the game that he wanted to play Hill 24 minutes. And then during a surprisingly competitive Cavaliers basketball game, he forgot that he's in control of how many minutes his players play. And George Hill ended up being on the floor for 35 minutes. So he did mention after the game that he thought he had played him too many minutes. So maybe doesn't get 35 here, but I would think that 24 is probably those days are probably done with. And 3,700 for George Hill, not the most productive guy, obviously, but 3,700 is 3,700.
Yeah. By the way, Chad is telling us Harrison got waived.
Okay, so they probably won't play Harrison.
If they do, that'll be interesting.
So I guess it would be like Burks or something.
Yeah, Burks for 4,100 on FanDuel is a guy that's popping up for me. Just so many of these guys are low enough price that you kind of just have to bet on the fact that they're going to get minutes without question. Something should pop here.
Yeah. That's the thing. Like, I don't know who it'll be, but these guys are just all so cheap that someone on this team you would think probably outperforms their price tag.
Yeah.
And like Burks, Hood, Hill are all pretty reasonable options there because they're going to get minutes.
Let's talk about Golden State. I don't have much on the FanDuel side. I assume you're going to begin and end with Kevin Durant.
Not really.
If anybody, I meant, not necessarily, just like in general.
I like Curry more than Durant. I'm just not really that high on Durant once Curry's back. Same with Klay Thompson. Yeah. Curry's the one that I think is just most likely to go out there and just, make 15 threes and go nuts. I do like that Durant's price tag has come down pretty quickly. He's down to, I don't have FanDuel pricing in front of me, but he's down to 10-4 on DraftKings, which, now he's back to where he does have some value there, especially if this game were to stay competitive. But I just feel a little bit better about Curry.
I get it. I would be very surprised if I had any sort of volume of Curry. I love the $9,700 price tag, but for him to go off, which he can do in 3 quarters without question, I just don't see this game being terribly competitive. I don't normally look at it like that, but this does not feel like the spot where they're going to push Curry into big minutes.
Yeah, well, and it's not in the context of an entire 10-game slate. I don't think it's the most appealing spot anyway against just a really, really slow Cavs team where you do have Curry. 9,700 on DraftKings is kind of expensive relative to other guys. Obviously, it's more appealing on FanDuel where they're the same price. But in the context of the entire slate, I don't think he's someone that really stands out as a phenomenal play.
I agree. I don't have anything else to talk about here. Jordan Bell for 3,500 on DK. Is that interesting to you?
Kevon Looney, I think, maybe more interesting.
Okay.
Played really well in the last game. Got a bunch of minutes, which was nice. I still kind of expect that they'll run hot hand here, and it's not a particularly appealing matchup against a Tristan Thompson led front court. That's one thing that you have to give to Cleveland is that Thompson is pretty good at getting it done, and we've seen him limit plenty of of centers lately. But I just still think the price tag's pretty cheap on Looney, who he played 30 minutes against the Hawks and lost like 4 minutes to a blowout there. So when he's playing well, the opportunity's there. We've seen that Steve Kerr isn't gonna force Jordan Bell into huge minutes. He doesn't seem to really like the guy that much. So I think that it's pretty much Looney's job to lose. So it's still an appealing price point, especially where he's power forward eligible.
Works for me. I don't have anything else for Cleveland Golden State. You?
Nope.
Let's move on to another game that's not appealing. The Orlando Magic hosting the Denver Nuggets. Magic 101 implied total. Nuggets 106. It's just not looking good on the surface there. Lowest total on the entire slate. We'll start on the Orlando side. Nikola Vucevic, which I don't know. Vucevic. Oh, God, I feel like Bill Simmons. I'm the worst. 9,500 on FanDuel, 8,700 on DK. You going to Vooch here?
I like him. I mean, the price tag's okay. Like 8,700 on DraftKings has some upside. It's just that they underprice so many mid-range centers so much that it's tough to really prioritize. But just a monster on the offensive end. Like he's been phenomenal this year. He's averaging over 1.4 fantasy points per minute. Not the best matchup. Like it's a slow-paced team that is okay defensively. Yeah, if I get Vooch, I get him, but I doubt that he's someone I really prioritize.
Okay. Yeah, I don't have any right now on FanDuel at 9,500. There's just too many other options. Like the guy that he's playing, who I also still don't have, but I don't have Fournier, I guess, for me. 5,200 on FanDuel is the only guy that I'd really be looking at from the Orlando side.
Yeah, nothing can go wrong there.
Right. It's a tournament play. I'm never happy about having Evan Fournier, but he's he's cheaper on FanDuel than he is on DraftKings, and that's sort of the only time that I'm going to be looking at him, when he has a very clear salary discrepancy.
Right.
How much has he been dropping? He's been at 52 for the past 2 games. Like he was 6,600 like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, his usage is plummeted, but obviously that's not necessarily indicative of anything going forward. But
he's been in the 20s for the past 6 games.
What'd you say?
He's been in the 20s for the past 6 games.
Yeah, early in the year he was right behind Vucevic and in usage rate for the team, up around 25%. Now he's in that 18 to 20 range.
Yeah, I will never. I mean, they could have 7 guys out, and I will never like Fournier.
I like Fournier when point guards are out and he has to have the ball in his hands. I don't like Fournier when I have to have him actually put the ball in the basket. That's
true. That's a good way to look at it. Anybody standing out for you on DK? Looking at it, thinking, I don't know. DJ Augustine has a full punt, 4,400. It's not really an appealing game.
Yeah, not really at all. I mean, Augustine's price is okay, but really, if you're going to compare him to George Hill, what's the difference? And George Hill's a lot cheaper at 3,700.
A good point. You got me in the middle of a coffee slurp. Any Aaron Gordon at 68?
Probably not. I know he's coming off a big game last night, but we talked about it yesterday. The rebounding numbers just haven't been as good this season as in the past. The potential rebounds haven't really been there either. And Orlando in general just runs their starters on average a little bit fewer minutes than other spots. So on bigger slates, it gets harder to get to Orlando guys when you're projecting them for 32 to 34 minutes instead of 36 to 38 like you can for some other guys. So I mean, if I get Gordon, that's fine, but he's not a priority.
Okay. Let's talk about Denver. I would have liked to get more Jokic, but this game in particular is a pretty tough sell for me. Denver is 25th in my pace rankings. Orlando is 27th. That's just kind of dragging down everyone. I got maybe 1 or 2 lineups of the 150 that I crunched to get Jokic. He's still underpriced, but just not for today. I don't want to have much of anything unless you've got a really good Malik Beasley / Torrey Craig take for today.
I do not. I don't think there's anyone on Orlando that Torrey Craig needs to defend. So I don't know how many minutes he plays, but I don't think that he's relevant regardless.
Yeah. When it was Gary Harris that was out a little bit ago, right?
Yeah.
4 or 5 games ago, something like that.
Yeah.
Yep. Those two guys flip-flop their minutes. Craig played 36 in the first game that Harris was out. Malik Beasley played 36 in the second game.
Yeah, I mean, with Craig, a lot of times we see him kind of re-enter the rotation in spots against like really good dominant scorers because he has been really impressive defensively this year for the Nuggets. But I mean, here, what's the utility in having Torrey Craig on the floor? Like, you don't need him for Fournier. You sure as hell don't need him for DJ Augustine. So yeah, I think if I have to guess, this would be a spot where Malik Beasley plays more. Okay. But neither of them are productive on a per minute basis anyway.
No, they are not. I have them both getting mid 20s ish minutes. Beasley a couple more than Craig. I'm fine on FanDuel getting Beasley at least, just because $3,800. Or if we get information that Craig might play more, I'm fine with either guy just because of their price and the ability to drop them. But it's just not a good game to want to have a lot of.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Jamal Murray should play like 38 minutes, which is appealing.
Ooh, we have ownership. Let me grab it. That'll change things a little bit.
The Nuggets have been running their rotation a little bit different too with Millsap and Lyles. Like Lyles is getting less minutes. Millsap's getting up around 30, so that's kind of interesting.
Well, someone I talked about is the most chalky person on. Well, somebody we talked about is the most chalky person on DraftKings. Any guess?
Collin Sexton?
Nope. Close.
Thompson?
Nope. You were closer with the Collin Sexton guess.
Chetty?
Nope.
Who? Oh, George Hill?
Yeah.
I was like, how many guys are on this team?
Not a lot. That's why he's chalk.
Yeah.
Second most chalky guy on DraftKings is a center that we didn't talk about in this particular game. That is the best offensive center in basketball.
Mason Plumlee?
20. Nikola Jokic, 20% expected ownership on DK.
Yeah, I mean, that seems like not right in that I think that's where he should be, but not surprising.
Yeah, same way. 17% on FanDuel. I'm just not there. I'm more using this game for punts than I am for anything of value.
Yeah, I'm trying to get my Jokic numbers correct. I don't like my baselines where they are. But right now I have him as a good, but probably like as a really good play, but probably not someone that ends up being like my highest owned center or anything.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. This is perfect. This worked out exactly how I wanted it to. I have 22% of Collin Sexton on my first crunch. We're projecting him for 0. So I can comfortably lower that number to a spot where I'm happy and not feel bad about it.
There you go. So obviously the numbers aren't perfect here because it gives you a lot of minutes with like bench players and stuff. But have you looked at Jokic's numbers without Gary Harris on the floor?
I have not.
He's played
100. Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
If you're trying not to play Jokic, then you probably don't want to listen to this. But he's played 114 minutes. Now, granted, again, like a lot of this is with guys like Lyles and Morris and Beasley. But he's played 114 minutes, 33.9% usage, 43.2% assist percentage, 1.6 fantasy points per minute.
Not bad for the best offensive center in basketball.
Yeah. So I'm seeing what happens if I force on like Jamal Murray. We get 100 minutes of Jokic and Murray without Gary Harris. 32.5% usage, 43.5% assist percentage for Nikola Jokic. Still 1.6 points per minute.
Lethal.
Murray, by the way, 27% usage.
Love it. And, this is clearly one of the better games for Jokic from a matchup standpoint because Vooch is terrible defensively. But the pace is just too low for me to want to go here, especially if he's going to be chalky. I love my man Jokic, but I don't see it at 20% ownership on a 10-gamer. Not for me. I'm going to go a different direction. You ready to move on?
Yeah, I do. I want to reiterate that I do like Jamal Murray at 6,700 on DraftKings.
Yeah, 12% expected ownership. I get that.
A little bit of a usage bump without Harris, a little bit of a minutes bump without him going from, like 36 to probably 38. So I think that's a pretty nice spot.
Let's get into games that actually matter.
Sounds good. Oh God, Washington Hawks.
The Atlanta Hawks hosting the Washington Wizards. 113.5 implied total for the Hawks, 118.5 for the Wizards. So 5-point line. Hawks clearly not great defensively, and they will be without Torian Prince for the next 3 weeks. So fire up all the garbage on Atlanta if you'd like. Their price points on DK are insane. So this is going to be more for you than for me. Bembry is 5,200 on FanDuel, 3,700 on DK. Dedmon, 5K on FanDuel, 39 on DK. Kevin Herter, 4,600 and 3,700. Trae Young is $1,000 cheaper. John Collins is $1,100 cheaper. What are you going to do with Atlanta here, especially with Prince out?
This is just stupid. I mean, I'm going to try and guess at what they do, and I'll probably be wrong. But it's just obviously it's an appealing spot, this game in general, for both teams. But Bembry, you have to assume, is going to play, up around 28 minutes. And, again, on DraftKings, like you said, 3,700 is just a really, really cheap price tag. If he ends up being projected for a ton of ownership, then obviously you can pivot to guys like Bazemore and Kevin Herter, and guys like that would be the ones that are likely to get more run if Bembry plays poorly, which, we've obviously seen happen before. But I think Bembry is a value play, especially in cash games, makes a lot of sense where you're not worried about the ownership. Dwayne Dedmon's in a great spot. The minutes for him and for everyone else are an issue because, like, he played 31 against Golden State, but in other games we've seen him, basically split those minutes with Alex Len. So you can't really confidently say how many he's going to play, but it is a great matchup for him here. And the price tag on DraftKings, where he's also power forward eligible, is just really, really appealing. So I really like Dwayne Dedmon. I think that in large field tournaments, you can even mix in some Alex Len, who played 4 minutes last game, but other games plays, 20 to 22. And is in a spot where he's going to just absolutely wreck this front court if he does play. So he's the kind of guy where he'll just have no ownership in tournaments. So you don't need a lot to be, to be above the field. But he's the kind of guy that can win you a tournament. Like if you played this slate, if this slate played every day this season and you had, a percentage of Alex Len that's higher than the field, he would help you win tournaments more than he would cost you money.
Yeah, for sure. Especially at that price.
Right. Yeah, like he needs to play like 18 minutes and you're going to be happy with what you get probably.
I don't have much interest in anything here on the FanDuel side. They're not cheap enough to be like exciting. It's a great matchup. The pace is going to be monstrous in this game. I do like John Collins a little bit. He's the only guy I'm getting with any volume, but the price is on DraftKings. That's where these guys are going to get played.
Yeah, and John Collins jumped $1,000 on DraftKings from last slate.
Wow. Yeah, he doesn't have much ownership projected to him. It's 14% for Trae Young, 14 for Bazemore, 15 for Dedmon, 17 Bembry, 10 on Herter.
Yeah, I mean the thing that sucks here is like to me it's like a total guessing game just because of the rotation they run. Like it should be Bazemore, it should be Bembry that are benefiting and filling in for Prince. But at the same time, we've seen Bazemore kind of just be phased back to where he's playing 20 minutes a night, and there's no guarantee that changes. You have, Justin Anderson, who potentially can take minutes. You have Vince Carter that potentially can take minutes. So just keep in mind that it's still, no matter how good something looks here from Atlanta, there's still risk just because of the rotations that they run.
I'm with you. Let's talk about your Wizards, because this is obviously a very appealing spot to have Wizards. 9,400 for John Wall on both sites. I like him a lot on FanDuel. Well, maybe not a lot. Maybe that's not the right word for it. But it doesn't get much better than John Wall versus Trae Young. Or Bradley Beal versus whoever's guarding him. What do you want to do with your Wizards? They're better on FanDuel by a mile.
Yeah, I mean, Bradley Beal's still playing huge minutes, played 38 last game. Wall in competitive games is playing 37, 38. So yeah, I like them both. Their price tags have come up. it's always tough for me to prioritize John Wall at like a 9K plus price tag, just because he generally doesn't give you that same kind of volatility that other guys do. Where like Stephen Curry, maybe his median projection's a little bit lower than Wall, but he's the one that's more likely to just throw 70 fantasy points up, whereas Wall doesn't. So it's always tough for me to prioritize him there. Beal, at 8,400 is kind of probably the correct price point, but just playing so many minutes that I think he's in play in this spot. I think I'd rather go to the guys that are a little bit less expensive though, like the wings on this team. Like you have Otto Porter at 6,100. I hate Otto Porter from a fantasy standpoint because he's just not a high usage guy, and it's really difficult to predict when he's going to have a good game because a large part of it is him running into steals, him having an above average rebounding game, or him shooting more efficiently than normal. But this is the kind of spot that sets up perfectly for all of that in a fast paced game against the sloppy Atlanta team that's missing Taurean Prince doesn't hurt either. So and the worst rebounding team in the league. So this sets up as a game where I think Porter probably is likely to do well. Kelly Oubre coming off the bench is where you like him as well, and he's still cheap. So I think going to these cheaper wings, Markieff Morris as well, playing backup center. Though we did see 5 minutes of Jan Mahinmi last game, but for the most part, Markieff Morris is playing backup center. So I think going to those cheaper wings is where I'm most interested.
I got a lot of Wall, Beal, Satoransky on FanDuel. Satoransky 3,800. Just an easy punt play in this matchup. Wall and Beal, again, just priced better on FanDuel. I have a little bit of interest in Kelly Oubre just from an upside spot, but I actually didn't get any Porter, Morris, or Oubre on my first crunch. It's kind of scary.
Yeah, I mean, I think it makes sense. Those are kind of guys that never pop off for me in projections.
I'm looking up John Wall's performances in Atlanta. Chat making a good point. He was probably really good point at the titty bars last night. So
yep, probably still is.
I mean, you know what? He probably he probably is. So I'm gonna pull this up here now.
I'm trying to figure out why Keith only played 24. Okay, 2 fouls. Yeah.
All right, so he's played 13 games since 2010 in Atlanta. Most points he's ever scored in a game in Atlanta is 28, but he has had some big assist games. He went for 28 and 9 in a game, 27 and 14, 21 and 12. Does Basketball Reference have fantasy stats on here? They do not. Yeah, maybe I'm gonna. He's played a ton of minutes. He hasn't played less than 30 minutes against Atlanta in Atlanta ever.
Him and Dennis Schroeder also hated each other.
That is very true. Let's see his most recent history, because I feel like the titty bars are probably much more prevalent now than they were as a young whippersnapper. 10 points, 11 assists on December 27th of last year in Atlanta. He was 3 for 9 from the field. His most recent game, 7 of 17, 3 of 15. This is peak John Wall going to the titty bar. So I think that we're going to need to take a closer look at this. I'm going to lean Beal here. I think that might be a little safer. Sad that this is like a real thing and not a gimmick or a joke.
Yeah. It's like I never get into narratives, but it's one that I think is at least worth mentioning.
Yeah, like I don't get the sense that he was drinking tea and reading To Kill a Mockingbird last night in his hotel room at like 8:30.
It seems pretty unlikely.
Yeah. I'm gonna go ahead and prioritize Bradley Beal now over John Wall, 9,400. I have Wall at 46 fantasy points on FanDuel, Beal at 42. So just give me some Beal.
So Keith only played 24 minutes last game, which is a little bit concerning. You got 18 from Bryant, you got 5 from Mahinmi, which left you with like 24 minutes at center. But Keith did sub out in the second quarter after picking up, or not long after picking up his second foul, and that's when Mahinmi got his 5 minutes. So hopefully we get like 30 minutes from Keith tonight.
Yeah, I have him in for 27 right now. I can comfortably bump that up to 29, I think, and that'll probably get me there. He's only projected for 5% ownership on FanDuel, so I'm not like totally. I don't need much to try to get to the field.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to touch on here?
I'm trying. So Thomas Bryant played
19 minutes every day.
Well, no, he had been playing like 14. That's why I was trying to figure out what happened. But Keith picked up his third foul in the fourth quarter, which for some reason I guess meant you needed to take him out. But he subbed out after picking up his third foul. That's where Bryant picked up another 4 minutes. So yeah, I'm still pretty high on Keith here. Like if you assume he subbed out because of those fouls, which I think makes sense just based on the timing of all of it, he lost 5 minutes to Mahinmi, and then he lost 4 minutes to Thomas Bryant in that game.
Okay.
We had pretty consistently seen him playing like coming in for Bryant in the first and third quarter, and then playing every other minute. So I think getting him over 30 tonight still is pretty reasonable.
There we go. Move on. Brooklyn Nets hosting the Oklahoma City Thunder. Nets 105 implied total. Oklahoma City 112.5. 7.5 point favorites in Brooklyn. I will start on the Brooklyn side, where I have a little bit of interest in Jared Allen, actually. 6,200 on FanDuel, 5,400 on DK. Do you have any interest in Jared Allen here against Steven Adams?
Not really. The price tag's okay, but yeah, it's just a difficult spot for him. And I think that at center, like a guy that I expect to play around 30 minutes is probably not someone that I'm going to end up getting to because of the opportunity cost.
I get it. I'm a little nervous. He's just grading out really well. What do you have him projected for, points wise?
So if I put him at 32 minutes, I get him up to 32.5 points, which makes him more reasonable.
Yeah. All right, we're in a comparable area then. I have him at 30 minutes. I have him at 30 fantasy points.
Yeah, I get 30.5 if I have him at 30 minutes.
Okay. Which means you are not happy with him.
What do you say?
If we're at the same spot, then that means that you are down on him.
Right. Yeah, like I think I would have to get him to like 32 minutes, which is what he played last game. And we have seen him play 35 recently as well. But I think I would have to get him up to around 32 to start getting him in lineups probably.
Okay. What about Rondé Hollis-Jefferson? 5,600 on FanDuel, 5,300 on DK. These are the two guys. I'm naming the two guys that actually came up in crunches for me. Any interest there?
I'm so tired of Rondé Hollis-Jefferson.
You and me both. I don't enjoy seeing his name.
Yeah, I don't plan on going there.
Okay. I don't want to either.
If I project him for 30 minutes, I get like 28.5 fantasy points, which isn't getting him in lineups.
Okay. So do you want anything from Brooklyn?
As a priority. I mean, D'Angelo Russell at 7,400, we know he has upside, but it's also a difficult matchup here against a very good Oklahoma City defense. So, if you get some Russell, I think that's fine, but there's nothing here that I want to prioritize on this slate.
Okay. I don't disagree. Nobody really getting any real ownership. Nothing in double digits on DK. Dinwiddie and Hollis-Jefferson at 10% on FanDuel. Let's go to Oklahoma City. Russ, 11,000 on FanDuel, 11,200 on DraftKings. I mean, Russ looks pretty tasty at 11K on FanDuel. That is nice.
Yeah, especially because it's always easier to get to him on FanDuel too, just because like DraftKings, you end up with all those shooting guards that are also point guards and everything.
Yeah.
But like Westbrook, just you have to roster 2 point guards. He's underpriced relative to DraftKings. I mean, I guess for his style of play, he's less appealing on FanDuel because turnovers are detracted more and you don't get the triple-double bonus. But I think he's just an easier play on FanDuel. Not to say that I don't like him on DraftKings, but I just think he's less of a priority there.
Yeah, Brooklyn 23rd in the league in turnover rate, so that sort of helps a little bit if you need any little like tiebreakers to point you towards Russ. Not that you should. There's one. I mean, he's the most expensive point guard by $1,300, but I'd rather have him over Curry or Wall, Mike Conley. You finally get to like Kemba at 9,000, where you can actually have that sort of discussion. But he just looks too good at point guard today on FanDuel, so I'm above the field and I'm pretty happy about it. What about Paul George? 8,300 on both sites. he is one of the highly priced small forwards. We have Giannis, we have Durant, we have LeBron, we have Kawhi, and then we have Paul George coming in $1,500 cheaper than Kawhi, and multiple thousands cheaper than Giannis, Durant, and LeBron. Do you have any interest in Paul George? I assume DK is significantly less so, but maybe more so on a FanDuel instance.
Yeah, I've interested him in both. I think that he's someone that, and I'm guilty of it too, that I kind of, when Westbrook comes back, I tend to just kind of skip over him. But the price tag's really, really appealing for someone who in competitive games gives you 37 to 38 minutes. But also, since Westbrook came back from his injury, you're still looking at a 27.5% usage rate and an 18% assist percentage from Paul George. He's averaging 1.25 fantasy points per minute. It's not like he's really taking a huge back seat here. And then also he's still getting, some time without Westbrook on the floor. So I think that his price tag is a little bit lower than it should be, whereas Westbrook's priced to where he probably should be.
Okay.
At least on DraftKings. Like Westbrook obviously is too cheap on FanDuel, but George is too cheap as well, I think.
Agreed. Any Steven Adams for you? I assume no.
If
Nothing crazy, at least.
If I'm going to play Steven Adams, this is the spot to do it.
Yep.
He should just he's another guy, we talked about it with Tristan Thompson. Jared Allen has all the capabilities of being a quality defender, but that doesn't really matter when you're talking about Steven Adams, who's going to just grab rebounds and put them back in the basket. And this is just such a bad rebounding Brooklyn team, not a fast-paced team, but they still show up as allowing, being one of the teams that allows the most rebounds per game to opponents. So if you're ever going to roster Steven Adams on a 10-game slate, this is the matchup that I would do it in. Still, not sure how much I'll actually get, though.
Yeah, I like him more at that $6,700 price point on DK. At $7,700 on FanDuel. I mean, that's the same price as Tristan Thompson. So Adams and Thompson are at this sort of break point where the next guy above them is Drummond at 93. So there's this $1,600 gap before you get to another tier. And if they're gonna be the most expensive guys at that tier, I'm gonna always be more likely to be under that spot.
Yeah, that makes sense. And between the two of them, I would rather take Thompson anyway.
Same. Anything for the value here? Jeremy Grant, 5K on FanDuel, 4,700 on DK, or I don't know, Nerlens at 3,600.
I'm good.
Yeah, me too. Ferg at flat minimum.
I'm okay.
Okay, just checking. He played minutes. That's
he does that.
Have him as a 0.54 point per minute guy, which might be the lowest I've seen.
He's out there much more for defensive purposes than for anything that helps us.
Yeah. Let's move on to the Memphis Grizzlies hosting the LA Clippers. LA Clippers. Why would I say it like that? 108.25 for the Grizz, 107.25 for the Clips. We'll start on the Memphis side. Marc Gasol has a pretty big variance in price. 10,200 on FanDuel, 8,600 on DK. I don't get the sense that I'm going to pay up 10-2 for Marc Gasol tonight. What do you think about him at 8,600, where it's much more appealing?
I really, really like him at 8,600. For one thing, we've seen him playing monster minutes lately. Like, I think that the standard baseline is to just pencil in 34 or 35 minutes for Gasol. But in competitive games, we've pretty consistently been seeing around 38 lately, which is nice. But this is also just a matchup that I love. It's a pace up game for a guy in Gasol who contributes in multiple categories. So he should be able to get the most out of those extra possessions. But also it's just a Clippers team that kind of has a black hole defensively at the 5. Like, it's Gortat, it's Harrell, it's Boban if he gets off the bench. Like, none of those guys are like stepping out with Gasol, who can space the floor. Obviously, he's an excellent passer as well. I think it's just a phenomenal spot for Marc Gasol.
Oh, I completely agree. I would love him on DK tonight. I wouldn't. You can't sniff that 10-2 price tag on FanDuel.
Yeah. No, I agree. Especially, like you said, he's more than Drummond, right?
Yeah, he's $900 more than Drummond, $800 more than Jokic, $700 more than Vooch, $600 more than Towns.
Yeah, there's just no reason to do that. Even if he projects a little bit higher, those guys all have the exact for convenience purposes, those guys all have like the exact same ceiling. So what are you getting out of paying more for Gasol?
And that is what the public thinks. He is projected for 2% ownership on FanDuel. And that I get. Let's see. The guys that I'm getting the most of are Garrett Temple, who comes up for me constantly on FanDuel at 4,300 just because of the minutes. I hate it, but it's whatever. JaMychal Green, 4,900 on FanDuel, 4,400 on DK. Any thoughts there? Is he just the forgotten guy behind Gasol and Jaren Jackson?
I'm looking at their rotation from the last game because Green's
There's
been
a
all
path
over.
here that I'm
Yeah,
thinking you get there.
Certainly a path. Especially because he should benefit if Jaren Jackson fouls people.
If.
Trying to be nice. But yeah, I mean, the minutes are volatile. They do depend on Jackson to an extent. I think that you could see like 22 minutes from Green. I think you could see like 28. So it certainly makes him appealing in tournaments because if he does get to 28, then he probably pretty easily pays off this price tag. I'm not someone that I would want to look to in cash games on this slate.
Oh, completely agree. I have him in for 25 minutes right now, but he's going to play like solid minutes if Jaren Jackson gets in any sort of foul trouble, or Marc Gasol for that matter. I mean, he's going to play if either of those guys get in any trouble. Not that like you would expect Gasol to be sitting for a large swath of this game, but Michael Green's a guy I have my eye on as a potential punt play at sub 5K. Maybe not punt. That's probably not the right word. It's a pace up spot for Memphis. So there's that. Any slow-mo at 4,500 for you? I hate him so much.
At the moment, no, but I do need to go back and read. I bookmarked it, but I haven't read it. There was an article tweeted out by one of the Grizzlies beat writers yesterday, and the headline or the whatever he tweeted about it suggested that Kyle Anderson's going to start playing more point, which I need to read it to see. Like, yeah, as the backup point guard.
Oh, okay. I was like, what are they shifting Mike Conley? That doesn't seem like the best strategy for the Grizz right now.
No, but I need to read it to see if that was something that like Memphis is saying, or if that was the reporter saying like Kyle Anderson would be more effective if they put the ball in his hands instead of making him stand around and be a spot up shooter, which obviously is true. Yeah. But yeah, so if I'll go back and read it, I'm sure I'll have it to talk about on the show later with Lofty. But if there's going to be a change here where he starts like getting his minutes staggered more and having the ball in his hands, then I'm interested in him. If not, then I'm not.
Makes sense to me. Do you have any interest in anything for the Clippers tonight? They did not come up for me at all on FanDuel.
I have interest in Jaren Jackson from the Grizzlies. I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah.
But from the Clippers have been like correctly priced for a very long time, it feels like. Like I always like their players, and they've been in some good matchups lately, and I still just end up not actually rostering them. And here it's not even a good matchup. The only guy who on DraftKings, the only guy who really had been underpriced lately was Lou Williams, and his price jumped from 4,900 against the Pels to 5,500 tonight. So I don't have anyone that's really popping up for me.
Yeah, like I would be interested in Gortat at 3,600 on FanDuel as a center punt, but there's no reason to do that any longer.
Right.
Like, it would fit as an upside play if center were different on FanDuel, but it's not. So I can't imagine wanting anything from the Clippers. They are barely owned. They shouldn't be owned. Pace down. Good defense. Like, nothing here is appealing, which means Gilgeous-Alexander goes for 90.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, on top of all the stuff that you said, like, it's a team where scoring is distributed amongst a bunch of players.
Yeah.
If you take a team where there's one or two guys that score and it's very heavily concentrated to those guys, then I'm more willing to overlook, a difficult matchup or even a little bit too expensive of a price tag because, everyone sees the matchup and the price tag and they avoid it. But here it's like, you have to not like you're kind of overpaying for all these guys, but then you also have to guess who out of Harris, Gallinari, Harrell, Williams, Gilgeous-Alexander, is the one that's actually scoring the bulk of the points here.
Yeah. I don't have anything else here.
Nope.
All right, everybody. Like and subscribe. This is my quick plug for that. The likes help us out a ton, so hit that thumbs up and subscribe so you can get some notifications for when we go live, because it'll generally say show starts at 9:15 and we'll start at 9:20. You want that alert more so than just the schedule. Like and subscribe. That's it. And don't forget, Thrive props coming up at the end. The Milwaukee Bucks hosting the Detroit Pistons. Bucks 117.25 implied total. Pistons 109.75. Bucks have the fourth highest implied total, which is nice. Both teams pretty good defensively as of late, at least from a fantasy perspective. Should be relatively quick game. So let's start at the literal top. Giannis, 12.7 on FanDuel, which is just a monster price tag. 11.6 on DK. Right now, I'm cool with it, though. I'm actually getting more Giannis than the public, even at 12.7 on FanDuel. So what do you think about it? Do you want to get to Giannis at 11.6 on DK?
I'm not opposed to it, but I just don't have him projected as highly today as I normally do. Like I only have him going for like 60 DraftKings points, which which as you know, normally he's someone that just pops in at like 64 or 65 for me. So relative to my other projections, he's not that high, but he's still a good play to where, if I get there, I get there.
Any thoughts as to why?
I think probably just Detroit's actually been pretty decent defensively. They don't play at a super fast pace. But yeah, I mean, the rates are where I've had them.
Okay. Guy that I'm getting the most of in this entire game, well, for the Bucks at least, Eric Bledsoe, 7,200 on FanDuel, 6,900 on DK. I don't know why I'm getting so much Bledsoe, but I am. He's kind of in his own little price tier. Do you have any interest in Bledsoe or Middleton? Anybody else from the Bucks?
I have a little bit of interest in Bledsoe just because we've seen the minutes trending up lately. Obviously the game against the Knicks went to overtime, but he's still been playing, 32 to 34 minutes more frequently than he was, where he seemed to be kind of just like capped at 30. So from a tournament perspective, I think maybe a little bit underpriced. Brook Lopez, I think, is an interesting tournament play. You obviously can't trust him on a game-to-game basis, but against Drummond, he's the kind of guy where I have interest because he doesn't depend at all on rebounding, and he's going to be able to space the floor. They're not going to – they really can't have Blake on him either because that would put, Drummond on someone that you don't want Drummond on. Yeah. So I think that it's a spot where Lopez could get a bunch of, pretty open three-point looks.
It's a good thought process. 5,200 on DK is nice. There's room to provide a ceiling there. Pat Connaughton's a guy that I'm getting a lot of at 3,800 on FanDuel. Is that outlandish?
I mean, yes, but
when I got 11% on my first crunch.
Oh, okay. That's. I mean, on FanDuel it's fine. You can drop him. He should play minutes.
Yeah, he should play minutes.
It's Pat Connaughton,
right. Look, I have him in for 26 minutes, and he's 3,800. He's kind of just like the best guy at that price point for me. He's a drop candidate in a game where Milwaukee should be like in a high scoring game potentially. So I'll take my chances.
Yeah, I mean, in 26 minutes on DraftKings, I have him projected for 23 points, which is not getting me him on DraftKings, but it's obviously completely different on FanDuel.
Okay. Let's talk Detroit. Drummond and Blake, we'll talk about them together. Drummond 9,300 on FanDuel, 88 on DK. Blake 9K on FanDuel, 9K on DK. I will have both of these guys on FanDuel. I have a lot more Drummond than the field. The field only at 9%. I got 23. This feels like a really nice Drummond spotter. Am I nuts?
Yeah, I'm trying to pull up now. I'm actually interested to see how he's done against Lopez in the past. Just because I think it's specifically relevant here, because if Lopez succeeds in pulling him away from the basket, then you're losing some of the rebounding upside there. And then I would be more interested in Blake because that's who I would expect to still be around the basket in that case.
Yeah.
But I assume he's been fine.
I might beat you to this. Last time they played was March 26th of this year. Drummond went for 15 and 18. He went for 10 and 12. He has not been great.
Yeah, on a per minute basis, especially. I mean,
Brook Lopez has, though, at least 2 years ago when it was relevant.
Yeah, I'm trying to see how many minutes Lopez played in these games.
Lopez dropped a 34 and 11 burger on him in Brooklyn 2 years ago.
I think that was a thing when he was on Brooklyn that he just like torched this matchup.
Yeah.
Think I kind of remember that. Yeah. So I mean, in the most recent game they played back in March, which was obviously the Lakers, but Lopez played 32 minutes. So most of the minutes that Drummond played were against Barolo, and he had like 41 fantasy points in 39 minutes. He had 18 rebounds, but you also have to keep in mind that that's a fast-paced Lakers team that was really bad at shooting the ball. So like you would expect him to have big rebounding games, and 18 isn't that big by his standards. Yeah. So I mean, I think Drummond's like fine. He has upside. I don't want to get too bogged down in a individual matchup, but I do think that there is some concern there that maybe he's pulled away from the basket a little bit more than he normally would be, and Blake grabs more rebounds than normal.
So then let's talk about Blake. 9K on both sites, not as appealing on DK. Only 7% expected ownership though on DraftKings, 12% on FanDuel. I'm above that number. It's hard to not like at least one of these guys.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pace-up spot for them. Like, Milwaukee's a good defensive team, obviously, but we've talked a lot about how pace matters just because the extra possessions can go a lot further, even if they're inefficient. And then also you kind of get, at least on DraftKings, where pricing is in part created or based on defensive matchups. Like, you get these guys underpriced a little bit because Milwaukee's been an efficient defensive team. So I think there is, plenty of upside here for Blake. Should play 36 to 38 minutes here, and a marquee matchup against Giannis as well. So I think I'd actually prefer Blake to Drummond, which is something that is almost never the case,
especially with the price difference like being worse for Drummond. I mean, $200 is whatever, but it's been a bigger gap lately. It's kind of narrowing.
Yeah.
I have a little bit of Reggie Jackson. What do you think of Stanley Johnson tonight? No Reggie Bullock.
I mean, it's still Stanley Johnson, but I think I'll be interested to see if we get any news leading up to the game. Fortunately, Detroit does have one of the most fantasy-friendly beat writers in Rod Beard. So hopefully we get some kind of news, because Detroit's rotation has just been really difficult to predict, outside of the main guys. They have Luke Kennard that they may or may not play. They have Langston Galloway. They have Johnson, who's been kind of all over the place. So hopefully we get some news there. But if we do get word that Johnson's like starting and we can project him to play 30 plus minutes, it's still not a spot that you're super confident, but the price tag is certainly appealing.
Yeah. Shout out to friend of the program, Rod Beard. Don't forget, he did a show for us with Chris and Alex. He and Alex are like friendly from something, Academic Bowls or something like that. Whatever Alex used to do back in the day. Yeah. He's like highly involved in that as like a charity too, if I remember correctly.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. But yeah, somehow they know each other. So friend of the program. Glenn Robinson at 3,500 is a guy that I'm keeping my eye on in the off chance that he gets named a starter today.
Well, I mean, I expect him to start. The thing with Robinson is
with big minutes,
right. He's been starting, but he plays 7 minutes in the first half and 7 minutes in the second half. With Bullock out, you certainly could, and I would think should see more minutes. Yeah. But again, if they have Luke Kennard, they have Bruce Brown, they have Stanley Johnson, they have a million. They can play Ish Smith more minutes, at the 2 and push everyone down. There's still a lot of ways for Dwayne Casey to screw this up for fantasy purposes. So I just don't want to be too confident in any one guy here. But you also just need to keep in mind there's a lot of cheap guys in a pace up spot that they have to play more minutes.
Yeah, that's part of the reason I'm looking at Robinson at a flat min salary on FanDuel, where there is opportunity for him to like not be your drop,
right?
Because he just soaks up minutes, plays well, and it's just one of those games. Kind of fits this particular matchup against Milwaukee. More of a 3-and-D guy, although I'm using the 3 portion of 3-and-D pretty loosely for him.
Yeah.
All right. Do we want to move on?
Yep.
Alrighty. Minnesota Timberwolves hosting the Charlotte Hornets. 113.25 implied total for the Wolves. 108.25 for the Hornets. We'll start on the Wolves side. Karl Anthony Towns, 9,600 on FanDuel, 9,500 on DraftKings. I'm a pretty big fan of Towns in this matchup.
So am I. I'm always a fan of Towns. doesn't always work out. But I mean, the opportunity is just there. Like he plays so many minutes in competitive games. He only played 33 against Houston, but he had 5 fouls in that one. He has almost a 28% usage rate since the Jimmy Butler trade. Overall this season without Butler on the floor, he's in that same range, averaging like 1.3 fantasy points per minute. I believe I'm pulling it up now, but I'm going from memory. He's right around there since the trade. So, all the opportunity in the world for him. He plays monster minutes. His usage had been dropping over a few games, but he got back up to like 38% last game. Like there's no reason to think that it consistently isn't there. So yeah, I think that there's a ton of upside for Towns, and he's been bad enough lately in some games because of blowouts or foul trouble, but his game logs are bad enough where I just don't think that he'll end up being that popular at this price tag, especially with Jokic coming off his monster game.
Okay. Oh, Minnesota. This team, I can't stop getting the guys that I don't want. It's kind of frustrating. Like, I got 20% Derrick Rose today. And I'm cool with that in a way. He's 5,700. I think there's some upside at that number, but then I remember that he's Derrick Rose and he's shooting 50% from 3 or something, and at some point in time that's going to come crashing down. I got a lot of Saric. And again, I don't think that there's any upside there. I think I have to make a manual adjustment. He's 4K on FanDuel though. But he's not playing. Like, enough that you're happy about it.
Right. Yeah, I'm not getting any of those guys.
Yeah. I got 18% Saric on my first crunch. That's just like a really difficult sell for me. I hate manually making those adjustments, but the only path to him going and providing major value on that number is if he gets minutes that I just don't see him getting.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of been the thing for me and why I'm not getting these guys is that since the trade, like, Covington's playing, 36 to 38 minutes, but he's priced up to where I'm not really that interested in going to him. But it makes it so Wiggins loses a couple of minutes. It makes it so Rose loses a couple of minutes off of what he was playing. Teague, is in that like 32 to 34 range, which is fine, but the price tag is also, basically where it should be. So most nights it just leaves like Towns as the guy that I want, and then everyone else just becomes like an afterthought.
I'm with you.
But
go ahead.
By the way, I have Towns projected for way more points than I'm comfortable with.
How many?
Like, what do you have Towns at on DraftKings?
Okay, well, let's start here. I have him at 35 minutes, so any discrepancy there?
Okay, I have him at 38.
Okay, I have him for 48 and a half.
Okay, I'm for 57 and a half.
Okay, so if I gave him 3 more minutes, then it's not as outlandish. We're probably in the same sort of area.
Yeah, I'm just scared already because I know that no matter what I do, unless I lower that, he's just gonna completely skew like all of my exposures.
Yeah. Well, you must love him on FanDuel. Then he's only $100 more expensive.
Yeah, I assume that I do.
Let's talk Charlotte. Kemba Walker, 9,000 on FanDuel, 8,100 on DK. Price is coming down pretty big. Is there any reason you don't want a bunch of Kemba on DraftKings tonight?
No, I mean, we know the upside's there, and all him coming off, poor performances means is that his ownership goes down. But I don't think that there's really, any substantial changes for him. Usage has been down a little bit the last couple of games, but that's not something I'm overly concerned about. We know that it should be there for him.
No
minutes
Marvin
are fine.
Williams.
Yeah, minutes are fine. Williams being out helps, if anything, just because it opens up more minutes at the wings for the handful of guys that get rotated through there. It potentially opens up more of Tony Parker's minutes being alongside Kemba, which, instead of in place of him. So I don't think it really has an impact, but if it has anything, it's probably a positive. Yeah, I like Kemba a lot at this price tag.
Okay. What about the rest of these guys who seem to be underpriced, whether that's Batum or Bridges or Cody Zeller if he's playing? Any interest in anything here? Like, Bridges' price for 4,100 is really appealing with Marvin Williams out.
Yeah, I still just kind of get scared there because they play so. Even James Borrego talked about it like in an interview that he just like talked about his rotation, kind of intentionally being inconsistent based on game flow and how things are going. So Bridges could get a bunch of minutes, or you could get more minutes for like Kid Gilchrist. You can get more minutes for Batum at the 4 with Lamb sliding to the 3. Like there's a lot of ways for this to go. So I'm not super confident in Bridges. I think that Zeller, if he plays, is appealing at only $4,000.
Yeah.
I think Lamb's appealing at less than 6K, but Kemba's the guy that I'm most excited about.
Does this make it any more interesting? Miles Bridges projected ownership on DK 3%.
I don't know. It kind of seems right to me. I'm just not a big like Miles Bridges guy. I'm also not a big Charlotte, like not Kemba or not main rotation piece guys, just because it's so all over the place.
Okay, that's reasonable. I would think I would have like more than a little bit Miles Bridges tonight if I were playing on DK. He's 5,300 on FanDuel, so I don't care all that much.
Yeah.
Anything else from this game?
I don't think so. Let me see. It's a game where Minnesota's big enough that if they were inclined to do it, you could get some extra Kaminsky minutes. But I'm trying to pull up to see how much, if anything, he's played alongside Zeller.
It'd be nice to see Zeller just out tonight.
Yeah.
I'd be happy to open up some of that.
Yeah, because I mean Kaminsky, like I like him if I can find minutes for him, but 0 minutes so far this season for Kaminsky alongside Zeller, so that's not ideal.
No, it's not. Ready?
Yep.
Moving on. The New Orleans Pelicans, the Dallas Mavericks. 118 implied total for the Pels. 112.5 for the Mavs. I'm hoping you have a good New Orleans Pelicans hot take coming in here. I'm going to go fill my water. 12-8 for Anthony Davis. 11-5 on DraftKings. Talk to me about AD, and if you don't have anything cool to say about AD, talk to me about Drew Holiday, Julius Randle, or Nico.
I'll say, so do we have Nico back in? I hadn't actually checked that news yet.
I have him in right now. He's questionable.
Okay. All right, yeah. So, I mean, if Nico's out, obviously play Julius Randle. But if Nico's in, I still like Anthony Davis here. Pretty much always do. It's not a matchup that I'm not concerned about because he's athletic enough to pull. Obviously he's athletic enough to pull DeAndre Jordan away from the basket. He's not dependent on scoring at the rim. But Drew Holiday's the guy that I really like here. Like the price tag's coming up, but he's just playing so many minutes. And even with Tim Frazier out there, he's still, he's good off ball. He's still picking up enough assists to be relevant. Should play 38 to 40 minutes if this game's competitive. And you're looking at, like a 27.5, 28% usage rate for him without Peyton on the floor this year alongside Davis. So I still think that he comes in as a good play if you can't get all the way up to Davis. But, both of them really good plays here, I think. Tim Frazier, more of a secondary option. We know that he has plenty of upside from an assist standpoint, but the price tag's gotten up to where it's pretty easy for him to fail as well. So I'm not as confident in him. If Miro's in, then I'm not really interested in him. I'm not really interested in Randall just because you get like 32 minutes for Mirotic, you get around 26 for Randall, and they're both priced to where I just don't really think that I need to go there. Yeah, so I mean, if he's out, then obviously Randall just becomes a really, really easy play.
You want to give me the Cliff Notes?
I like Anthony Davis. I think he's good at basketball. I like Drew Holiday. He plays a lot of minutes. Tim Frazier is whatever. Miro and Randall, I don't have interest unless Miro's out. Then I like Randall.
Okay. Yeah, I got a lot of AD, which is terrifying, but this is a really good spot. I'm going to cough. Hold on. Ooh, that would have been not fun on the microphone. Although I don't even.
I actually have Davis projected for more points than Giannis. That might be like the first time this season.
They might be in a virtual tie. Yeah, so I have AD at 59.0 and Giannis at 58.8.
Yeah, I mean for like actual purposes, they're basically the same. But I have AD at like 62.1 and Giannis at 60 and change.
Yeah, I got a lot of AD on FanDuel. I got no Drew at 9,600. Very little Randall, no Mirotic, no Tim Frazier, no Eton Moore. It's all just AD, and that all changes if Nico is out.
Yeah, seems right.
Okay. Oh God, I hate days that I have that much AD. Like sometimes it feels good, but then he gets a hangnail and comes
Right.
out 4 minutes into the first quarter. Makes you want to jump off a building. Let's go to Dallas. Nice little pace up spot for Dallas. 7,500 for DeAndre Jordan on FanDuel, 6,900 on DraftKings. Meh. There's no ownership to anyone here. Highest ownership on either site is Luka, 7% on DraftKings at 6,700. I don't really have much interest in anything unless I'm like punting a position and going to like Maxi Kleber at 3,600 on FanDuel. You want anything from Dallas?
Wes is kind of interesting. Like, he's not playing huge minutes like he used to, which sucks.
Yeah.
But the Pels, they just play so fast and they're not that good defensively. And we've seen a lot of games this year where like the random wing shooter on the opposing team just has like a lights out game. So Matthews, I think, has some appeal. Again, not a super confident spot, but he is, guard and forward eligible on DraftKings, which makes him, really helpful. So, I think that's appealing. I like Luka. The problem is just that he's still a point guard on DraftKings, which sucks. But also, like I talked about yesterday, he just really hasn't been super volatile this season, in like a good way. Like for tournaments, he just hasn't been a guy that ever goes really that far off of what you project him for, which is really good for cash games, but it's not as great for tournaments. So that's like the issue with him. But I do think it's, a nice spot.
Yeah, his standard deviation on a points per possession basis is like shockingly low.
Yeah.
So he doesn't get a lot. Like he doesn't get a lot of wiggle room on my ceiling projections because there is no ceiling. He's just always good.
Right. Yeah. Which and in part, I mean, it's still we're 20 games in his career or something.
Small sample.
Right. And like he's involved enough that I think you see that probably start to happen more, but it's just worth noting that because like it jumps off the page, like how low it is relative to, how actually good he is.
It really does. Yeah. I'm not really looking at anything here. It'll be randomness that essentially puts Mavs in my lineup.
Yeah.
Moving on.
Yep.
Toronto Raptors hosting the Philadelphia 76ers. Pretty excited to watch this one tonight. 117.75 implied total for the Raptors, 111.75 for the Sixers. So 6-point favorites in Toronto. We'll start with the Toronto side. I've got a lot of exposure to this game. The prices on FanDuel are much better. We'll start with Kawhi. I assume you're indifferent. 9,800 on FanDuel, 9,300 on DraftKings.
Yeah, whatever. I mean, I'm projected for like 49, 50 fantasy points.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's fine. I'm sure I'll get him, but like the thing is that like on DraftKings where it's kind of positionless, you talk like Leonard's 9,300, Towns is 95 or 96 or whatever, and I have Towns projected for like 7 more points.
Yeah, I'm starting to get this feeling that Kawhi Leonard is a guy you want to play in these sorts of games, the Boston games, the Philly games, where he's just not the type of guy to go out and like roast the Hawks on a Tuesday. But like he's without question engaged in running everything and being everywhere in matchups like this. And I don't know, like that could just be all bullshit in my head, but it feels like the games that I want to play Kawhi are oddly enough like the harder matchups.
Yeah, I mean, I think it makes sense. Like that's an argument that we make for LeBron. It's an argument we make for Jimmy Butler.
Yeah, I don't know if it's just like maybe just those 2 Boston games are like clouding my judgment. Because he just seemed to be, although he looks terrible in like the last 2 minutes of a game, dribbling off his foot and shit. Come on, Kawhi, dribbling off his New Balance kicks. No, nothing.
I was thinking about Kyle Lowry.
He's a New Balance guy now.
Yeah. I remember that. Like, it was like a delayed reaction. By the time I realized what you had said, it was like
I'm begging for it, man. My bad. I've been off for a couple days. Slack chat this morning was wondering any interest in Kyle Lowry. He's 8K on FanDuel, 7,700 on DK. I'm just with the field on Lowry. I don't have a ton of interest either way. If it were in Philly, I might have a little bit more interest, but I don't know.
That's actually what I was thinking about when you made the New Balance joke.
Okay. So any Lowry for you?
I'm right there with you. Like he just takes such a hit when Kawhi plays. Like he's got a 17% usage rate this year. He's averaging less than a fantasy point per minute. His assists come down. It's not to say that he can't have a good game, but it's just not a spot where I'm expecting it to happen. And on a 10-game slate, I'm not going to end up getting that much of him just because I have him projected for like 38 fantasy points in 34 minutes, which is still better than he's produced alongside Leonard on a permanent basis. But it's factoring in the pace and everything here against Philly, but it just still doesn't get him, really into lineups.
Next guy up that I'm talking about is Chalk on FanDuel, the Chalk, but I understand why. 5,900 on FanDuel, 5,800 on DraftKings. Talk to me about Serge Ibaka.
The price tag's just too cheap. Like assuming he starts here against Embiid, and you can project him for 30 plus minutes. I think the price tag's just low, especially where he's power forward eligible, so you don't even have to play him at the center spot. It's been a surprisingly good spot, good matchup for guys this year. Playing the 5 against Philadelphia. As long as Ibaka can stay out of foul trouble against Embiid, I don't think there's really anything to dislike about him at this price tag. There's a lot more upside than risk.
Yeah, he would probably be the first person I put into a FanDuel cash lineup.
Yeah, 5,900, that probably seems right.
Yeah. He's just a pretty clear value play. What about Siakam, 67 and 61?
It's just kind of a little bit too high of a price tag for me on him. I love him as a player this year. It's been really cool to see him improve in so many aspects of his game. But from a fantasy standpoint, he's still someone that when Leonard's out there, he's taking a backseat to Leonard, he's taking a backseat to Lowry, he's taking a backseat to Ibaka. From a scoring standpoint, and Lowry and Leonard have the ball in their hands enough that his improved playmaking still only goes so far. So not really someone that I get to when the entire team's healthy.
Yeah. Other guy that I'm getting is Danny Green, 4,700 on FanDuel. Never really gets any ownership. I don't really love shooting guard tonight. It's kind of a mess. So if I'm going to be going to anything at shooting guard, I'm much more likely to be paying down. And I think that Danny Green is in a pretty nice spot here. Nothing crazy on the price tag. He's just kind of there.
Yeah, I've nothing against that.
Where's he hiding? Danny Green. I want to look at his game logs. 28 against Cleveland, 32 against Golden State. Way less appealing when you start looking at the fact that he's Danny Green.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have him projected particularly well, but I think that your reasoning makes sense.
Yeah. I only have him projected for 23 fantasy points. He's not like he's gonna go. Like I'm projecting him to go for 40 tonight. Does Jonas get any run here, or does Embiid just abuse him?
I assume Embiid abuses him. I mean, I think that looking at the last game they played, which was against Nikola Jokic, is probably a pretty good gauge. You got 31.3 minutes from Ibaka. You got 18.3 from Valanciunas.
Yeah.
And that's a Denver team that played either Jokic or Plumlee for all 48 minutes at center. So I think that's a pretty decent gauge here. If you didn't have Valanciunas start and defend Jokic, I don't know why you would against Embiid.
I agree. So let's talk Philly. Joel Embiid, 10-7 on FanDuel, 10-3 on DK. I'm over the field right now. This feels like a really nice spot to have Embiid. My only concern is, nothing. He's Joel Embiid. I'm in.
Yeah. my only concern is Toronto is a good defensive team, but that only goes so far. And what I care about, he should, in a game that you expect to be very competitive, you should get 36 minutes out of him. Should be aggressive offensively. There's really nothing not to like.
Completely agree. What about Ben Simmons? 8,900 on FanDuel, 8,500 on DraftKings. I can't stop getting him.
I don't think I'll get much of him here. He's just someone I prefer so much more against fast-paced teams that don't rebound well and are not efficient defenses, just because so much of his value comes from his rebounding and his assists. He scores, but I mean, he's not a shooter. He's, not. If you're just relying on his scoring and you're not getting triple doubles from him, he normally is going to disappoint you. I do think him playing more time at the 4 helps. just because for rebounding from a rebounding perspective. But this just isn't a spot where I'm that excited to go to Simmons.
Almost had the quad double against them on October 30th.
The turnovers.
11 points, 10 assists, 8 rebounds, 11 turnovers. Yikes. Yeah, I'm going to have to take a closer look at him today. I got 18% Simmons, which makes me nervous. I don't have much Jimmy Butler, but 6,900 on DraftKings. Is that getting to a point now where it's hard to avoid?
Kind of. Like, he's still kind of taking a back seat here in some games, but in other games, and a lot of times it's been the more competitive ones, you're seeing him come out and have, upper 20, low 30s even. He had 33% usage against Memphis, had a, bad game, but the shots were there. It's obviously an unappealing matchup and all of that, but I do think there is some tournament value just because if you buy into the narrative, I guess, that, Butler is going to be more assertive in competitive games, then that would make sense here.
Okay.
But I still don't he's still not a priority for me.
The only other guy that I'm getting is a guy that I get constantly. He's someone I'll have because of tournaments and no ownership. But Wilson Chandler, 4,100 on FanDuel. Just a way to throw away small forward.
Yeah, that's fun.
Yeah, I don't have a hot take. He's Wilson Chandler. I think that's it. I just want to watch this game.
Yeah, definitely a really appealing game to watch.
Yeah.
Definitely a good one to have on national TV instead of the Cavs and the Warriors.
Sure. Let's close this out. The late night hammer by a lot. Only game at 10:30. The only game starting after 8 p.m. The Los Angeles Lakers against, I don't know, a shell of a team. The San Antonio Spurs just cannot do anything of value right now. Did I get a Spur anywhere? I want to click. Yep, there's 2% Rudy Gay. Got beat by 34 last night in Utah. Now back-to-back heading to LA. They got beat by 31 against Houston a couple nights ago. They got beat by 39 against Minnesota the night before that. What in the world is happening to San Antonio?
They're very bad defensively.
I think it's just period. 7% worse than average at giving up fantasy points per possession. They're the second worst fantasy defense over the last 15 games.
Yeah. If they played at a fast pace, they would just be like a fantasy goldmine, especially because you still see, like, on DraftKings, I think they think the Spurs are a good defensive team still. So you pretty consistently get guys priced down to take on the second worst defense in the NBA so far this season.
Yeah. So let's talk about LA. 10-7 for LeBron, 10-5 on DraftKings. I'm going to have a hard time avoiding him here.
Right. Normally, I'm very much, Giannis and Davis over LeBron, but on DraftKings with him at 10-5 and those guys up at 11-5 and 11-6, you can't tell me that LeBron's ceiling is that much lower than those guys, or that his probability of hitting it is that much lower, that it's worth spending an extra $1,000 there. So, I do like LeBron a lot here. I like Embiid probably similarly, maybe a little bit more at a similar price point, different position.
Yeah.
But, I like LeBron here. Like, the Spurs have just been so bad this season that the only negative is that they don't play fast, but the Lakers play really fast. So it kind of makes up for it.
About Brandon Ingram, JaVale, or Lonzo, three guys that are priced quite a bit better on DraftKings than they are on FanDuel. JaVale in particular at 4,800.
Yeah, I like all of them, but I like Lonzo on DraftKings at 5,200. Obviously, who knows what we're going to get, but the minutes have been there. In the last game against Phoenix, he played 30 and a half minutes in a blowout. So, he left the game with like 7 minutes to go. So I think that, like, if he's playing reasonably well, you can still get 32 to 34 minutes here out of Lonzo in a nice spot. Kuzma's minutes have been up, which is really nice. His price tag has risen though, so I think he's still, pretty correctly priced. McGee is tough because, like, obviously the playing time has come down since Chandler's been there, and it's really frustrating, but he's just still so good on a permanent basis. You just need him to get to like 26 minutes and he ends up being a really good play. So, clearly not someone I'm going to in tournaments, but in cash games, but in tournaments, I think that there's still some upside there. for McGee at sub 5K price tag.
Benjamin Sisko mentioning Spurs on a back-to-back, maybe resting guys. Hopefully they are, because
I think they rested them last night.
Did they?
Well, no, I mean
yeah,
nobody.
None of them had to play in the fourth quarter.
Nobody played after the 8-minute mark of the third.
Yeah, that's true. KCP is the only other guy on FanDuel that I'm looking at. $3,600 throwaway. That's all.
Sure.
I don't have much interest in the Lakers side on FanDuel. Everybody's priced really highly. Lonzo's 6,600, JaVale 63, Brandon Ingram 65. Just too much.
Yeah, much more appealing on DraftKings.
So now we've got to talk about a team that's much more appealing on FanDuel, but not appealing really at all. DeMar DeRozan, 8,400 on FanDuel, 8,900 on DK, coming to LA. That's his spot. He's too cheap, but I don't really know what to do with this team. LaMarcus Aldridge is 8K on FanDuel. Again, too cheap, but I'm not even getting him. I don't know what to do with these guys.
Yeah, I'm not really getting much either, and it scares me because it is, a really nice pace-up spot here against the Lakers.
Yeah.
And you have talented guys like in DeRozan and in Aldridge. I'm not getting a ton. I think it's fine, but I think out of all of them, Aldridge is the one I like the most, just because it is a good rebounding spot, and if he makes his shots, he's kind of too cheap for his ceiling, I think.
I completely agree with you. He's projected for 16% ownership on FanDuel, and I got 0. That one doesn't make me comfortable. I don't want to be doing well rolling into the 10:30 game, knowing that I don't have LaMarcus Aldridge and see him hit 2 18-foot jumpers from the top of the key in the first 3 minutes, and it's all right, strap in. Here it comes. Only guy that I got was Bertans, 3,500 on FanDuel. Again, just a throwaway punt spot on FanDuel. 5,500 for Rudy Gay is not bad, but again, I'm just having trouble getting to San Antonio.
Right. If I project Gay for 30 minutes, Aldridge for 34, DeRozan for 38, they still just come in as, good plays that I'm sure I would get in some lineups, but not guys that are going to be popping up all that often.
I don't have anything else here.
No, I'm hoping that I end up getting more of this game than I'm anticipating, because it just feels like a spot that I don't want to be underweight on, but I also don't know how to be overweight.
I do. Just eat more.
Fair.
Fucking awful joke.
Yeah.
Wanna talk Thrive?
You got a reaction at least.
It had to happen eventually. Let's talk Thrive.
Yeah.
Check it out, people. Oh, these are verses. I like verses more than the traditionals.
Yeah, I think I do too.
Okay. So $2 Awesemo sponsored contest. Prize pool's $200. It's a versus contest, so let's check it out. Thrive Fantasy. We're looking at props here. Not just about fantasy points. It's about actual player performance on the court in individual categories. The first one we're going to look at, a couple of teammates. Let's pull it up here. Let's go to my Thrive sheet and delete all my old junk. Kevin Durant versus Steph Curry. Durant plus 1.5 points. So the underdog here, sort of. You only get 90 points if you take Durant. 110 for Curry. Durant getting 1.5. Who scores more points? Durant plus 1.5? Steph Curry.
I got them projected for down to the 10th. I have them almost the same. So I guess I got to go Durant.
Okay. I spelled Curry's name wrong, so I have Durant at 29.3. With the bonus, I've got Curry at 25.9, which is an interesting balance because you get less for Durant. So I think that I would prefer Durant here, but it makes me nervous that I don't get as much out of. I wish it was 100 on each side.
Right. Yeah, if it was 100 on each side, I definitely have Durant. But I'm at 29.8 to 28.5.
Okay. See, I only have Curry at 25.9. I have his minutes relatively low for today.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Actually, good call. I do too. But I don't have Durant's low. So actually, I'm going to go Curry here.
There you go. This one's Well, not at all the category I would have expected. We've Collin Sexton with a plus half rebound against Klay Thompson. Not even action. 105 for Sexton. So, who has more rebounds, Collin Sexton or Klay Thompson? And you get the hook.
I got 4.7 for Sexton. I got...
When you say 4.7, does that include the half?
No.
Okay.
So 5.2.
Okay.
And I have 4.5 for Klay. So with more points going to Collin Sexton as well, I'm on Sexton here.
Yeah, I have including the hook. I've got 4.2 for Sexton, 3.8 for Klay. So I'm above on Sexton, and I get the bonus extra points. So give me Collin Sexton. Try to find another fun one. Ooh, okay. This one's good. And it involves a fave of mine. We've got Nikola Vucevic plus 0.5 points and rebounds at 100 even. So this is a coin flip against Nikola Jokic. Who has more points plus rebounds tonight? Vooch or Jokic? Battle of the Nicolas.
And Vooch is getting half. All right, so I have Vooch at 32.9 plus the half, so 33.4. Probably have Jokic higher. I have Jokic at 34.8. So Jokic.
Yeah, I have 29.4 for Vooch and 30.3 for Jokic. So give me the best offensive center in basketball, Nikola Jokic, in the battle of the Jokic's. Or, damn it, the battle of the Nicholas. Fuck me. I deserve that. All right, let's do two more. Are you looking at them right now by any chance?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to do one more and you can pick the last one, but I think this one is so preposterous that we need to look at it. We've got D'Angelo Russell against Russell Westbrook. Points, rebounds, and assists. Russell gets plus 20.5. Had to pick it, you know?
Yeah.
That is such... And he gets 110 points if you're right.
All right.
It stood out too much.
I need the calculator for this one.
Yeah, so plus 20.5. It's points, rebounds, and assists. You get a bonus for Russell, 110 points. I have him at 29.9 points, rebounds, and assists. So with the 20.5, he gets to 50.4. I have Russ just under a triple-double tonight. 26.5 points, 9.7 boards, 9.7 assists, which is a 46 total. So because of the plus 20.5, I get D'Angelo Russell by a full 4 over Russ in the battle of people who have Russell in their name. Give me the 110 points with D'Angelo Russell.
Yeah, I'm on D'Angelo too. Adding the 20.5 points, I get him like 51 or 52 to 44.5.
Yeah, same. So like this is one, like we were talking before, I would love to see what side the public takes on both of those and wonder like where that needs to be shaded. It's just I don't have enough information here yet. Because if people see that plus 20.5 and D'Angelo Russell is owned at is in 70% of someone's stuff, then I probably want Russ.
Right, exactly. Yeah, like being able to figure out kind of how sharp the public is here is really important because if they suck, you can just play, you can do what you and I are doing and just, basically say, I have this guy, I'll take this guy. Yeah. But, as people here get sharper, then it's going to be more of a, math-based game.
Right. All right, give me the last one. Your call.
Trae Young versus Drunk John Wall.
All right.
Plus 8.5 points and assists for Trae Young.
8.5?
Yeah.
All right. And you get 120 points for Young. Those points and assists, you said? Yes. Woo, this one's tight. I've got Trae Young, including the 8.5, at 33.4. I've got Wall at 32.5. You would need, if you were just treating this as even, to make up for that points split, you would need Wall to win this matchup 60% of the time. I have Trae Young ahead, so this one's a no-brainer for me. It's Trae Young.
Yeah, it's Trae Young for me too. I have, with the points, I have Trae Young at 34.8. I have Wall at 34.2. So with the scoring difference and the fact that the possibility that there are factors that my model does not account for in play for John Wall, I think it's Trae Young.
You don't have the was up too late drinking with bubbles last night in your model?
I do not. But actually, if I move John Wall up to 38 minutes, it becomes a lot closer. But okay. I still think that Trae Young is probably the right play.
Yeah, he's going to be sweating out that Hennessy tonight if he's playing 38 minutes. I think that's it. There's 5 props for you for Thrive. Go to Thrive Fantasy. You can go to bit.ly/ThriveStrat. I'll drop that link in the chat right now. bit.ly/ThriveStrat. You can play against us in this Awesemo branded contest. You'll see it. Awesemo's in the name. The $2 Awesemo NBA Challenge. Only $2 to get in. You can't beat it. Get in there and join us. Play us. I'll be in this tournament. So if you want to watch me win it, all you have to do is sign up. Adam, anything else?
Deeper dive show with Lofty at 5 Eastern tonight, or probably like 4:45, but somewhere in there.
Yeah. Deeper dive. We'll have Lofty will have the deep dive out early this afternoon, and then live before lock tonight, Chris Spags, Eddie Fear making his return after 2 days off. So they'll take you all the way up until lock, and I will be on DK Live's The Sweat Show tonight. I don't know what the topics are as of yet, but I'll be there from 6 to 7 if you want to pop in and say hi. And by say hi, I mean just pop in and watch. I have no idea. There's no mechanism to say hi. You can message me in Slack if you'd like, or on Twitter and say hi. That's all I got, guys. Enjoy your Wednesday. I'm loving this day. I'm going to be digging into this pretty deeply. So if you are a premium member, come into Slack and let's talk all day. I'm not going anywhere except for paying attention to this slate. If you're not a member, use the promo code NBA Strategy to get a 7-day free trial. My final plug. We're out of here.